Tom starts the game with a swamp and a way for his bauble. John plays his Zagoth Triome tapped, Extra plays a forest, and enchants it with a wild growth. Sam plays a tapped steam vents. Tom plays an island and sacks his bauble, getting another island into play and passing. John plays a Hinterland Harbor untapped and casts Sanctum Weaver before passing to Extra. Extra casts Nature's Lore to search for an overgrown tomb, for which he pays 2 life to have it come in untapped. He plays a Llanowar Waste for turn. He ramps further with a rampant growth, getting a swamp and passing to Sam. Sam plays a swamp, then casts March of the Blackgate, amassing 1 on ETB. He passes to Tom. Tom plays a swamp and a Mind Stone. He casts a Nazgul. The ring tempts him. The Nazgul gets a 1/1 counter, and Tom selects it as his ring bearer. He passes the turn to John. John plays a Sea of Clouds, then casts Enchantress's Presence. He follows it up with a Weaver of Harmony, drawing off of his enchantment. With nothing else, he passes. Extra plays a Metallic Mimic, naming Spider, and follows it up with a Twin Silk Spider, making a 1/2 Spider with Reach, with both creatures getting an additional 1/1 counter thanks to the Mimic. He plays the backside of Colony Ambush as a tap land for turn, and passes. Sam plays an island, and casts Malhur, Uruk-hai Captain. He swings with his Orc army, amassing 1 off the March of the Blackgate, and John takes the damage. He then passes to Tom. Tom plays an island, and casts his commander, Lord of the Nazgul. He casts Gitaxian Probe, looking at John's hand, and cantripping. Lord of the Nazgul triggers, making a 3/3 Wraith with Menace. Deciding to join Sam in bullying John, he swings his normal Nazgul at him for 2 before passing the turn. John plays a Swamp and a Satyr Enchanter. He then casts his first saga of the game, the Trickster God's Heist, drawing a total of 2 from Enchantress's Presence and Satyr Enchanter. Heist's first ability triggers, and John decides to screw over Tom and Extra by having them exchange Tom's commander and Extra's Mimic. He then passes to Extra. Extra plays a Swamp and taps out for his commander, Shelob. He swings the rest of his creatures at John for 8, and passes to Sam. Sam plays a Stormcarved Coast and casts Grishnok, Brash Instigator. On ETB, Sam amasses 2 and chooses to take control of the Satyr Enchanter until end of turn. He then swings his Orc army at John and the Satyr at Tom, triggering March from the Blackgate. Tom blocks the Satyr with his Wraith, killing it. Sam then passes the turn back to Tom. Tom plays a Command Tower, casts Soul Shatter, forcing his opponent to sack their strongest creatures. Then he casts another Nazgul. The ring tempts him, with the original Nazgul remaining as the ring bearer. And only 1 Nazgul triggers due to him forgetting about the other one. He attacks Extra with everything for 9 damage, drawing and discarding off of his ring bearer. Extra takes it, and Tom passes to John. On John's turn, Heist's second ability triggers, and this time he chooses to screw over Sam, having him exchange March of the Blackgate with Extra's Wild Growth. In his first main phase, he casts Jukai Naturalist, drawing 1 from Enchantress's Presence. He then casts the Horus Heresy, drawing 1 and choosing to take control of the Twin Silk Spider, the Orc army, and a Nazgul. He ends his turn with a tapped Ketria Triome and passes to Extra. Extra plays a Woodland Cemetery and recasts his commander. Swings at John for 4, then the turn moves to Sam. Sam plays a Swamp for turn and casts Enter the God Eternals, dealing 4 to the Sanctum Weaver, then amassing 4 himself. He passes to Tom. On his turn, Tom sets up for future shenanigans by playing a Wavebreak Hippocamp and Baral Chief of Compliance, before passing to John. On John's turn, Heist and Heresy both trigger. He draws 3 cards from Heresy, and he chooses to deal 3 to Extra and gain 3 life with Heist. He then adds to his collection of sagas with Azusa's Many Journeys, drawing off the Enchantress's Presence. He plays a Throw Parasite and ends his turn with 2 tap lands, Breeding Pool and Rafine's Tower, thanks to Zeus's first ability. He passes to Extra. Extra attacks John for 4, then casts a Hatchery Spider. Seeing as he doesn't have any creatures in his yard, he doesn't get to reveal any cards from his library, and passes, disappointed. Sam plays a Mountain, and finally casts his command, Sauron the Dark Lord. In response, Tom casts Resculpt, targeting the Lord of the Nazgul, triggering his Hippocamp and drawing. With nothing else, Sam passes to Tom. Tom recasts Lord of the Nazgul, triggering Sauron with Sam amassing 1. With nothing else, Tom passes. On John's upkeep, he activates Throw Parasite, removing a lore counter from his Horus Heresy. On his draw step, he draws 3 from Heresy again, and gains 3 life from Azusa's. The next saga on his list is Binding of the Old Gods, drawing from Enchanter's Presence and triggering Sauron. He targets Lord of the Nazgul with the saga's first ability, and Tom's commander bites the dust again. John then plays a tapped Murmuring Bosk, followed by Jugan Defends the Temple, drawing 1 from Enchanter's Presence and triggering Sauron. The saga enters, and John creates a 1/1 Dork from its first ability. Satisfied for now, he passes to Extra. Extra plays a Rot Widow Pack, triggering Sauron. He then cultivates for a swamp into play and a forest into his hand, triggering Sauron again. He plays the forest as his land for turn, and passes to Sam. Sam casts Orcish Bowmaster, amassing 1 and pinging John's Troll Parasite. In response, John casts Swords to Plowshares on the Bowmaster, ping the X-Sword cost along the way while triggering Sauron. The stack resolves, with John gaining 3 while his opponents each lose 1, Sam gaining 1, and the Bowmasters and Parasite biting the dust. Before passing, Sam plays Swarming of Moria, making a treasure and beefing up his army even more. Tom plays Gale, or the Prodigy, a Talisman of Dominance, then passes to John. On John's turn, Heresy's final ability triggers, with the chosen targets being Jukai Naturalist, Shelob, Sauron, and a Nazgul. Azusa's also triggers, exiling itself and returning back side up. Old Gods also triggers, getting John a tap Spara's headquarters. All Juga's trigger as him put a 1/1 counter on his mana dork. He then casts Hidetsugu Consumes All, drawing from Enchantress's Presence. He plays the Nesting Grounds for turn, and his last 2 creatures for the turn are Scholar of New Horizons and Brago, King Eternal. He then passes to Extra, whose only play is passing the turn to Sam. Sam, in a similar position, only casts a Soul Ring and passes it back to Tom. Tom plays an island and delves for Treasure Cruise. Gale triggers, and he recasts Soul Shatter from his graveyard, exiling it as it resolves. Then, forgetting he had already played a land, he plays an illegal swamp and passes to John. On John's turn, all his sagas trigger. In response to the triggers, Tom casts Dig Through Time, drawing from his Hippocamp. Before Hidetsugu's trigger resolves, Extra activates Rot Widow Pack, making a 1/2 and making each opponent lose life equal to the number of spiders he has. After all the triggers resolve, Tom casts Setessan Champion, followed by an Inventive Iteration, bouncing Extra Spider token and drawing 2 off Enchantress and the Champion, while also putting a 1/1 counter on the latter. He casts 3 visits for a Stomping Ground untapped, paying 2 life, then caps off his turn with the Herald of Pantheon. On Extra's turn, he plays a Swamp and recasts his commander for the second time. Once he moves to his end step, Sam casts Commence the Endgame for 3, before moving to his turn. Sam plays a Shipwreck Marsh for turn, sacks his army with Village Rites to draw 2, then recasts Sauron. With his main amass engine back online, he passes to Tom. Tom casts his Lord of the Nazgul, again, triggering Sauron. He passes to John, hoping his commander will stick around this time. John's Saga triggers on his main phase, drawing off Iteration, and flipping Hidetsugu into Vessel of the All-Consuming. In his main phase, he casts Eldest Reborn, triggering Sauron, Enchantress, Citizen Champion, and Herald of the Pantheon, then forcing his opponents to eat Saga Creature or Planeswalker. John then casts Eidolon of Blossoms, triggering itself, Sauron, Enchantress, Citizen Champion, and Herald a second time. He then Beasts Within's Lord of the Nazgul, and Tom responds with a Go for the Throat, targeting Citizen Champion, with Sauron, Lord of the Nazgul, and the Hippocamp all triggering. In response to the Beast Within, Tom also Infernal grasps his Eidolon of Blossoms, triggering Sauron and Lord of the Nazgul. John's Scholar removes a counter from the Eldest Reborn, which gets him a Plains into his hand. He plays the Plains for turn, plays a Hex Parasite, triggering Sauron one last time. After all that, John finally passes. Extra only plays a Black Market Connections for his turn, triggering Sauron, before passing to Sam. Sam plays a Swamp and casts the Witch King of Angmar, then passes to Tom. Tom plays an Island, desperately recasting his commander once again, triggering Sauron. He passes to John. John's Eldest Reborn and Iteration both trigger, and Extra activates his Rot Rattle pack in response. He makes a 1/2 Spider, but his opponent's losing life from the ability. John then finally casts his own commander, Tom Bombadil, triggering Sauron. He casts the first arrow in games, making a 1/1 and triggering Sauron, Enchantress, and Herald of the Pantheon. He then Farseeks for a Savai Triumph, triggering Sauron, plays a Glacial Fortress for turn, then passes. With John's board state having gotten so out of control, and seeing no outs, with all their hands empty, the other players agreed to concede the game to John, since his win was inevitable anyway.